My name's Sarah, and I'm a compulsive overeater. And it's good to be at this meeting this morning, and it's certainly good to be speaking about step 10. In terms of my recovery, I have been abstinent since 6th of January 2021, and I've lost about it's between 5 and 6 stone, and yeah. So I was 12 stepped to the OA program many years ago via another 12 step. I was doing step 4 in another program and was 12 steps into this program. And I said, "What's OA?" And I soon found out what OA was. And I messed around with the program for many years. I didn't take it seriously until I found a particular meeting, which was shortly before I got abstinent, and now I take it very seriously. This is my home group. I come here every week, and I like this meeting because it's a really serious condition. My food it's a really serious illness. It really is. It's the difference between being extremely unhappy or reasonably happy in life for me. I'm aware that overeating can lead to a lot more than unhappiness. I'm well aware of that as well, but that's how it is for me. And step 10 for me is I've heard it said that step 4 is when you empty the rubbish bin, and step 10 is that you kind of make sure that you don't fill it up again, and that kind of makes sense. And so I'll explain a little bit about what I mean by that. I mean, step 10 obviously is step 10. It's towards the end of the steps. And the first thing that I had to do was absolutely accept step 1, that I was powerless over food and that my life was unmanageable around it. My life was absolutely unmanageable, around food. I'd go up and down the scales. I'd be binging or restricting, and it was just completely ruling my life. I just had no idea. So I finally got step 1, and then the idea of a higher power. As I've said many times, the first person that spoke to me about OA many years ago said, "Do you pray about your food?" And I remember saying, "Of course not. That's like taking the mickey out of God. You don't pray to a higher power about something like food where you're just weak-willed and greedy." And she said, "What makes you most unhappy?" Before she'd even got the question out, I said, "Food is what makes me most unhappy in life." And now I do pray about my food. And I've learned a whole lot about the whole concept of a higher power, which I'm not going to talk about now. Suffice to say that I talk about I pray for abstinence daily, and I've been given it, and some days are harder than others, and that's how life is. Some days are harder than others. So I've learned so much. And step 10 is when I read in the OA 12 and 12 about step 10, and of course it doesn't feature rather too much about the act of the actual eating. But the bottom line is, for me, with step 10, if something's gnawing at me, if something happens in the day, either I say something or someone else does, or something happens, whatever it is, it's irrelevant whether I cause it or someone else causes it. When I'm uncomfortable or in pain, the first thing I tend to want to do is eat. It's the first thing I want to do, whether I'm overtired, over lonely, over angry, whatever. I want to act out and overeat. I do everything over. I do everything to the... And that's why step 10, and of course all of the steps, but I'm mainly talking about step 10 today, is so important. If I'm going to experience recovery from compulsive eating, then day after day, it says it here, I have to repeat the actions that have brought around healing. And the actions that brought around healing were looking at my step 4 and looking at my behavior around food and looking at the way that food was so linked to my emotions. And so if I'm going to have recovery one day at a time, I have to repeat a day at a time the actions that have brought me healing, which is basically I do the same thing every day. I've got a plan of eating that takes care of my food. I've got a sponsor and I've got sponsees to whom I speak regularly. And those are all those actions that are absolutely crucial for me. And if I follow all those actions, those previous steps, the chances are step 10's not going to be too big a deal. Don't get me wrong. Some days step 10 is an extremely big deal if I've done something that I'm really in, or something's happened I'm in pain about. But if I'm following following my 12 steps and I'm using the tools of OA, then I shouldn't need to sort of, break out and act in an emotional way or eat or overeat, I should say. And the key word, of course, is continued. Nowhere in the steps, I don't think does it suggest that we should have it have everything solved and in neat little boxes. It says continued. And in my book, it says the spiritual principle here is perseverance. And isn't that really good? Perseverance, except it's not, the longer I'm in recovery, the less it's a case of, oh, I've got to persevere with this. And the more it's a case of, this is good, this is good, I can handle it. And it talks about here, it says step 10 allows us to recognize our emotions and walk through the pain they cause us. I did not know that I ate on my emotions. I really thought, and in all sincerity, I just thought I was a big, greedy, weak-willed person. And that's so damaging to think of myself like that. That's not how I am, and that's not who I am. Who I am is someone with a kind of needs a lot of input emotionally, to get through life. So I go out in the world today or tomorrow or whatever, and normal people that meet me in the street, they won't know that actually I need a lot of help with my emotions, and they don't need to know. It's nothing to do with them. This program, and step 10 in particular, allows me to behave in a normal way in the outside world, and it allows me to address my deep emotional glitches through this program. So it allows me to get a handle on my emotions, and I've always got examples of that. There was one day last week where I said something to one of my family, and as soon as I said it, their reaction showed me, and my program kicked in, and as well as their reaction, I thought, oh my God, you were so out of order. And I bloody well wished I could have gone back in time to 10 minutes before. Then I wouldn't have said it, then they wouldn't have been hurt, then I wouldn't be needing to feel uncomfortable, having to apologize. But I did, I got hold of that person and I said, I was so out of order, I'm so sorry. And they said, yeah, I was really hurt. And it was put right. And the moment passed, I didn't pick up food. And I learned from it. You know what, Sarah? You need to watch your tongue. You need to think before you speak. And there's a part of me goes, but I always think before I speak. Well, evidently not, because you didn't do that, last week. And so that's what step 10 is. I don't tend to do a written inventory at the end of a day on step 10. Plenty of people do, and everyone is, of course, slightly different. But it says in the 12 and 12, self-analysis is second nature. So self-analysis, thank you. Self-analysis for me I'm not sure if I'd call it second nature yet, but it is something that comes to me because of this program. And quite often it comes to me through, I'll go and sit with my sponsor and say, I feel uncomfortable about this and I don't know why. And by pouring it out to her, that kind of, with a lot of guidance sometimes from the sponsor, that intuition, that self-analysis comes to me. So a lot of people do a written step 10. I tend to know, and when I was in the workplace, sometimes something would happen in the workplace and I would think, oh, that's not sitting right with me. And it's not something I need to talk to anyone about at work. It is something I need to think about and put right. And I would, because I've got a program, I think, you know what? Just park it for now. When you're driving home tonight, let the thought come back to you and then you'll get some clarity on it. And I love that about this program because I never used to have the sort of clarity of mind to think, like, you're feeling uncomfortable. When you've got time, consider this, and put it right. And I used to find that a great comfort. Something I'd feel uncomfortable and I'd go, right, you're uncomfortable. You haven't got the headspace to analyze it now because you're at work and you've got to do something. But you'll have that chance. It's like a cushion. The program is there as a kind of a cushion. And it talks about how by doing step 10, we become increasingly aware of our true motives. And my sponsor has a really good saying, and it's see that your motives are right. And if I'm thinking of doing something, whether that's kind of buying extra food at the supermarket or putting a bit more on my plate or saying something to someone, what are my motives? And actually, putting extra food on my plate, that's just not negotiable. That's not, because that's going to take me straight back, to the food. But I really like that. I really like that idea of just look at your motives, Sarah. Just look at your motives. It's a really, really good part of step 10 for me. And it talks about a persistent effort to let go of our defects and change our actions is crucial to our recovery. And I can't get away with this kind of, do you know what? I'll do what I want all day. Tonight, I'll say sorry and I'll write it all down and I'll promise not to do it again. That's not a proper step. That's not a proper step 10. I think with step 10 is it's a call for me to be, to some extent, responsible. Responsible for my actions, responsible for what I say, responsible for what I think sometimes, for being judgmental or so. So step 10 for me is absolutely crucial, and like all of the steps, I've got a friend who says, the steps are stepping stones, not millstones. They're not to be feared. They're not great sort of great hills to be climbed. They're there to aid my recovery. And really that is the essence of step 10 for me. But I had to have gone through the other steps first. And I still have to go through the other steps. I mean, I'm never done with the, with the steps. So, yeah. And as I go about my day to day, I'll think about this morning's meeting and I bet you I'll be good all day. My step 10, I'll be spot on today. It's every day that I need to just be aware of it. So thank you ever so much for listening, everyone. And I'll leave it there. Thank you.